Nuevos Amigos. I'm happy to be with you today. Estoy muy contenta de estar aquí hoy día. How are you? ¿Cómo están? We've had such a great time learning about the countries and communities of Latin America. Now it's time to look at some of the Latin American countries that are found in the Caribbean Sea. Get your Spanish journals ready and be prepared to write. Alisten sus diarios de español y prepárense para escribir. When Columbus sailed to the New World on his first voyage in 1492, the land he first set foot on was the country of Cuba. Columbus said that he had never seen anything so beautiful. Cuba is a long and narrow island surrounded by thousands of tiny islets. It's also the largest of the Caribbean islands. The Caribbean Sea is named after the Carib Indians that populated the islands in this area of the world. The term in Spanish for the Caribbean Sea is El Mar del Caribe. Repeat after me. El Mar del Caribe. Now, let's say it together. El Mar del Caribe. Good job! Now, let's find out the verb of the day. El verbo del día.
El verbo del día es enseñar, to teach, enseñar.
Let's conjugate the verb enseñar, to teach. Yo enseño, I teach. Tú enseñas, you teach. Él, ella enseña, he, she teaches. Usted enseña, you teach formal. Nosotros enseñamos, we teach. Ustedes enseñan, you all teach. Cuba has a number of rare animals and one bird species that is found nowhere else in the world. It's about the size of a bumblebee when full grown. ¡Qué interesante! It's called the Cuban bee hummingbird, and it's known locally as a sunsuncito, little sunsun, for the sound of its tiny wings as it flies. It can be seen in many parts of the island. The weather is considered pleasant in Cuba most of the year, but every 1 or 2 years, a major hurricane hits areas of Cuba, causing plenty of damage. Hurricane in Spanish is huracán. El huracán. Say it with me. El huracán. One more time. El huracán. Cuba's economy is based largely on agriculture. The primary crop is sugar, which was once grown on large sugarcane plantations. Plantation in Spanish is plantación. La plantación. Say it with me. La plantación. Una vez más. La plantación. The government of Cuba is defined in its constitution as a socialist state of workers and peasants and all other manual and intellectual workers. Socialist in Spanish is socialista. Repeat after me. Socialista. Let's say it together. Socialista. Good work, Nuevos Amigos. Now, here's our first dialogue.
¿Me enseñas a abrazar?
Claro, es fácil.
¿Cómo empiezo?
Empieza quitando.
Did you listen and notice the conjugated form of the verb of the day, enseñar? Excellent! Let's go over the dialogue together. Student number 1 asked, ¿Me enseñas a restar? Can you teach me to subtract? Repeat after me. ¿Me enseñas a restar? Good. I'll say it again. ¿Me enseñas a restar? Student number 2 replied, Claro, es fácil. Of course, it's easy. Repeat after me. Claro, es fácil. Let's say it together. Claro, es fácil. Student number 1 asked, ¿Cómo empiezo? How do I start? Let's say it together. ¿Cómo empiezo? One more time. ¿Cómo empiezo? Student number 2 responded, Empieza quitando. Start by taking away. Say it after me. Empieza quitando. One last time together. Empieza quitando. Muy bien, nuevos amigos.
In Cuba, as in other Latin American countries, the Spanish settlers colonized the island and established their own government. The native indigenous people were made slaves to work in sugarcane plantations, plantaciones de azúcar. And when this population died out from disease, slaves were brought from Africa. Today's Cuban population is composed of these 3 groups and the mixture of them, natives, Spanish, and Africans. One of the most interesting facts of this country is the rise and establishment of its socialist society, su sociedad socialista. After winning independence from Spain in 1898, a government arose, giving political and economic power to only a few politicians who owned most of the main services like roads, hospitals, sugar plantations, and farmland. Since the United States military had helped Cubans win their war for independence, Americans had the right to establish businesses in Cuba. Because the 2 main property owners of goods and services were the Cuban politicians and some American companies, a stable middle class in Cuba did not arise. Most Cuban workers and laborers were poor, while the company and business owners were rich. In 1959, a group of rebels led by Fidel Castro took over the government and became the only ruling political party. They decided to create a socialist society. This means that the government owned and controlled every aspect of the production of goods and services. American companies had to leave Cuba, and every private business was taken over by the Socialist Party. The Socialist Party started a social revolution, meaning they changed the way people lived. Their goal was to provide jobs, food, housing, and health care for every Cuban and to create a social equality between all the classes. Fidel Castro became the leader of Cuba and many people supported him. There were also a large number of Cubans who left their country because they did not believe in a socialist revolution. It is a Cuban socialist belief that education and health care should be the first state expenses so that all citizens would receive these services for free. As a result, the people of Cuba had the opportunity to become educated under Castro's government. Cuban socialism continues to survive today. The government is still composed of one ruling party that controls most of the economy and cares for the welfare of the citizens. Although some branches of business, the media, and arts have been privatized, and foreign investors may establish businesses in Cuba, the country still declares itself as socialist. Today, some Cubans may have more money or material things than others due to their earnings in their own businesses, but they all feel part of a large social community in which cooperation plays a role in their everyday lives. The Cuban Constitution was last revised in 1976, and all citizens are guaranteed a job, medical care, education, food, clothing, and housing.
¿Qué tal, nuevos amigos? ¿Cómo están hoy? ¡Qué bien! Me alegro. I'm glad to hear it. Today's dicho may sound complicated, but its meaning is simple. Listen. Más vale pájaro en mano que 100 volando. Más vale pájaro en mano que 100 volando. Let's say it together. Más vale pájaro en mano que 100 volando. This dicho translated to English means a bird in the hand is worth 100 in the air. A similar saying in English is a bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush. It means that it is better to have one sure thing than many other possibilities that you are waiting to get. In other words, secure what you need and want, and be decisive, because if you always want it all, you might end up with nothing. Let's say it together one more time. Más vale pájaro en mano que 100 volando. Think about our dicho this week, and take care. Nos vemos pronto, nuevos amigos.
It's always so interesting when our wise man brings us new dichos that help us make our lives better. Think about all the good things you do have. Now, let's learn some more new words as we continue our lesson on Cuba. El héroe. El héroe. Hero. El héroe. El aeropuerto. This one has 5 syllables. El aeropuerto. Airport. El aeropuerto. La palabra. La palabra. Word. La palabra. El verso. El verso. Verse. El verso. La amistad. La amistad. Friendship. La amistad. Bien hecho. Very well done.
Everywhere in Cuba, you will find the image of José Martí. Cuba's international airport, El Aeropuerto, is named after him. There's also a monument dedicated to his memory. This writer, poet, journalist, philosopher, teacher, and lawyer is considered a hero, un héroe, of Cuban independence. José Martí was born in 1853 in Havana, and at age 15, he began writing articles against the Spanish government that were published in some of Havana's newspapers. His ideas of a free Cuba soon were read and heard across the country, and the Spanish rulers sent him into exile, meaning that he had to leave the country. Martí lived in Europe and the United States, but he never forgot to write and to fight for his country. His weapons were his words, sus palabras. His thoughts of freedom, justice, and social equality inspired many Cubans. Martí was killed in battle in 1895 when he returned to Cuba to help fight for independence. His words are still resonant in declarations, poems, and songs that are known by most Cubans, and his writings are internationally acclaimed. The famous song, Guantanamera, has a verse, un verso, taken from his writings titled Versos Sencillos, simple verses, and it goes like this. Yo soy un hombre sincero, de donde crece la palma, y antes de morirme, quiero echar mis versos del alma. I am a sincere man, from where the palms grow, and before I die, I wish to shed my verses of the soul. José Martí's poetry reveals his love for Cuba, the desire to create a just world, and the simple things that people enjoy, like friendship, la amistad.
Mira, el maestro les enseña a leer.
Sí, qué bien, mi hermanita está en esa clase.
Tú le puedes enseñar a ella en casa.
Sí, le enseño también a escribir.
Let's practice our pronunciation as we go over the second dialogue. Student number 1 said, Mira, el maestro les enseña a leer. Look, the teacher teaches them to read. Repeat after me. Mira, el maestro les enseña a leer. Now, let's say the whole sentence together. Mira, el maestro les enseña a leer. Student number 2 replied, Sí, qué bien. Mi hermanita está en esa clase. This means, yes, that's good. My little sister is in that class. Repeat after me. Sí, qué bien. Mi hermanita está en esa clase. Now listen again. Sí, qué bien. Mi hermanita está en esa clase. Next, student number 1 said, Tú le puedes enseñar a ella en casa. This means you can teach her at home. Say it after me. Tú le puedes enseñar a ella en casa. Say it with me. Tú le puedes enseñar a ella en casa. Excelente. Student number 2 responded, Sí, le enseño también a escribir. This translates to, Yes, I also teach her to write. Say it after me. Sí, le enseño también a escribir. Can you say it with me? Let's try it. Sí, le enseño también a escribir. Perfecto.
Tiene el leopardo un abrigo en su monte seco y pardo. Yo tengo más que leopardo porque tengo un buen amigo. Tiene el señor presidente un jardín con una fuente y un tesoro en oro y trigo. Tengo más, tengo un amigo.
These verses are taken from the famous Cuban writer and hero José Martí's Versos Sencillos, simple verses. They talk about friendship. In the first verse, the author compares friendship to a leopard's fur and his home in the hill. Martí says that he has more than the leopard's fur and his hill because he has a friend. In the second verse, the poet says that friendship is more valuable than the president's possessions. Having a friend is more valuable than the president's garden, fountain, and his treasures in gold and wheat combined. Here are some more new words as we continue our study of Cuba. La educación. La educación. Education. La educación. Gratis. Gratis. Free, at no cost. Gratis. El libro. El libro. Book. El libro. El uniforme. El uniforme. Uniform. El uniforme. La prueba. La prueba. Test. La prueba. Excelente.
Cuba is respected and admired by many people for its programs in education, La Educación, and Cubans are proud to be part of one of the most literate countries in the world. In 1959, when Castro's socialist revolution took over the country, there were almost 1 million people who did not know how to read. In 1961, Castro ordered all the schools in Havana to close for 8 months in order for the city's students and teachers to go to the rural areas and teach farming families to read and write. The program was successful, and soon schools were built and operating in all the rural villages of Cuba. Today, education is free, gratis, to everyone. Most adults in every family need to work, so they put their children in free daycare centers starting at 6 months old. When children turn 5, they start primary or elementary school until the age of 11 or 12. From the age of 12 to 17, children and teenagers attend secondary school, which is the equivalent in the United States to middle school and high school. They also provide school books, libros, and materials at no cost. Every child is fed at school, and they receive a free uniform, un uniforme, as well. The uniform colors for elementary students are red and white. For secondary levels, the colors are yellow and white. Cuban teachers pay attention to each student's skills and talents. For example, if they see that a student is very good at PE, they would recommend that she would attend a special school where her talents could be fully developed so she could end up competing at the Olympic Games. In secondary schools, students may choose to learn a specific trade like mechanics, cooking, or acting. If a student wants to obtain a higher education, he or she can go to any of the 9 universities or 50 institutes around the country, where subjects from agriculture to computer sciences are taught. A higher education is free as well, but students must qualify by passing an admissions test, una prueba, to enroll. Besides providing an education, one important role of Cuba's schools is to inspire students to become responsible and cooperative citizens. Cuban education has been a priority for over 45 years, and in 1998, Cuban students rated #1 in reading and math in international tests.
Ahora es tiempo para la composición estudiantil. It's time for your composition. Imagine that you are a classroom teacher. What grades or levels would you teach? What subjects? What would your classroom look like? What would be the best part of your teaching day? Be creative. Sean creativos. Our study of Cuba brought us many new words and phrases, Nuevos Amigos. So let's review our lesson and write down anything you might have missed. The verb of the day was enseñar, to teach. And in our first dialogue, our students used the sentences, ¿Me enseñas a restar? Can you teach me to subtract? And, claro, es fácil. Of course, it's easy. The new vocabulary words in this lesson were el mar del Caribe, Caribbean Sea, el huracán, hurricane, la plantación, plantation, socialista, socialist. We also learned the words el héroe, hero, el aeropuerto, airport, la palabra, word, el verso, verse, la amistad, friendship, and la educación, education, gratis, free, at no cost, el libro, book, el uniforme, uniform, la prueba, test. Our dicho was, Más vale pájaro en mano que 100 volando. A bird in the hand is worth 100 in the air. In our second dialogue, we used the sentences, Mira, el maestro les enseña a leer. Look, the teacher teaches them to read. And, sí, qué bien, mi hermanita está en esa clase. Yes, that's good. My little sister is in that class. Remember to write your composition about being a classroom teacher and the subjects and grades you would teach in your Diarios de Español. Muy bien, nuevos amigos. I am so proud of you. You've done an outstanding job. Han hecho un trabajo sobresaliente. If you have any interesting information or fun ideas about Latin American culture and history, then I'd like to hear from you. Write me a message and have your teacher email it to me. Mándame un correo electrónico. The email address is nuevosamigos@dallasisd.org. Remember, when you learn to speak another language, you also make new friends. Acuérdense, cuando aprendemos más de un idioma, podemos hacer nuevos amigos. ¡Adiós!